I said in the intro, we're going to cover big wins and we're going to cover huge losses. And this next one, I wouldn't necessarily consider it a huge loss, but it was definitely a bummer. We got sued.
Yeah.
And it was scary. Like, to be honest with you, it's scary. It was something I personally had never gone through. There's a lot of emotion involved in that. Something I don't think people talk a lot about is like, it's emotionally taxing. And you're trying to make rational, logical decisions, but you're also very frustrated and pissed off. And it was, we go into great detail on this on episode 145. But Ken, what were your thoughts there?
Yeah. And so, like David, I had never been sued before. I knew I have attorneys in my family. I know people that had been sued. And so it was nerve-wracking, lost sleep over it. It definitely was a distraction from, operating the company. And it was all around a negative experience, but also at the end of the day, we had that experience now. And so we kind of call that, I can't remember who I stole this from, but he essentially said, any money that he's lost or time is an education fund. Put that in the education fund. And so now we have that in our education fund where we've learned from that. It sucked. It was painful, but we learned from that, and we're going to be better moving forward on, there was lessons learned there, what to do, what not to do. But the biggest takeaway from that was to, and I think we did a really good job. We kept our emotions out of it, and we put the business first, and said, like at the end of the day, the emotion piece is there. Like, we wanted to crush somebody, but we had to peel that away, and professionally, what was best for the company and for the the entire team and the company, and I think we made the right decision there, and that was a pretty crazy experience. So yeah,
absolutely. Now, what next? What other initiatives do we have going on?
Absolutely. And so I'll bounce this one over to you, David. I'll speak to it a little bit, but we focused on profitability. And so 2022 was a lean year in terms of, we saw some pullback, there was COVID, and then there's post-COVID, and we saw some, everybody's kind of, maybe some people kind of going back to retail. And so we've seen some pullback on sales. And it's, the longer you're in this game, more competition, the more everything. And so profitability is really, we focused a lot on profitability this year. And David, what are some things that we drilled into for profitability?
Absolutely. We focused a lot on pricing, and how we had our products priced. There's so many things that are out of our control as Amazon sellers. However, we are in control of price. And this is something that sometimes when you're launching a product, it's kind of a finger in the wind, like what price feels right. But we tested. We would move prices around. We do a 30-day look back. We played around with a couple different softwares. We're right in the middle of testing a new software right now, which it's too early to tell whether I can endorse this one wholeheartedly. We're still learning and still looking forward to doing some look backs on it. But that was something that we did that I think really helped out with the profitability. The other thing that we did was we made it a point once a month to look through all of our expenses. And this is something that's not exciting. It's kind of boring, but the number of like software subscriptions or things that just auto renew once a year that we caught allowed us to be a lot more lean and cut out like any wasteful spending. And I think that that's just good business hygiene. And it was something that I think moving forward, we're going to continue to do this. It's easy to let that one slip, but I think if you're a business owner, that's your responsibility, is to make sure you have a good idea of all the expenses running through your business. So, we talked about cutting down ad spend, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here. And then I think the last thing is we're implementing a process for inventory and inventory management, specifically retiring products. We've talked about kind of killing our babies in that, like, we launch a product, it doesn't go well. what do you do with that? Well, we put in a process very recently where we're doing heavy discounts on pricing. It's going to generate cash flow, not necessarily profitable sales, but it's going to help us kind of get rid of that inventory, liquidate that inventory, and move on so we can focus on our high performers. And so that's something that inventory management is very important in this industry. And it's something that we're trying to strike that balance between never going out of stock and carrying way too much inventory. And that is a delicate balancing act, especially when you have lead times of 120 days out of China. It makes it tough to react. And so that's one of the reasons that we like having manufacturing on U.S. soil, is that 120 days can be cut down to 10. And in some instances shorter, because we have full control over manufacturing.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. The next one, and Ken, I'm gonna let you start with this one. We implemented the entrepreneurial operating system from the book Traction. So talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so EOS, so Traction, if you haven't read the book, go grab it and read it. EOS, which stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And at the high level, it's just basically an organized system of processes to how an entire business should function together, and keep everybody on task, as well as there's an entire planning and review, and it's done weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually.